the story goes that there was this band in the 80s called the Scorpions, and they had this smash hit called Wind of Change, which was huge internationally, not so much domestically, but overseas was a big deal because it was all about the wind of change politically and socially as the Soviet Union fell. And these guys, this song became like, it's like one of the top 5 like rock ballads of all time because a lot of people in Europe, particularly Germany and Russia and the rest of the USSR, fell in love with it because it was all about freedom and change as the Soviet Union fell. But the story here and the conspiracy and the mystery is that the CIA actually wrote this song and like gave it to the Scorpions, the lead singer Klaus, and like infiltrated Soviet culture using a song of propaganda. And the dude, Patrick, who was like the narrator, was told this by his friend who like is kind of an investigative journalist and also had jobs that I think kind of were in law enforcement or defense or espionage or something. So this dude runs in a lot of circles and had heard this story that the CIA wrote this song and gave it to the Scorpions. The Scorpions were viewed as this perfect band because they were an English band. They sung songs in English, but English was their second language. They were a German band. So obviously with the Berlin Wall, East and West Germany, finding a local band who, appealed to both sides and overseas, all that shit. It was the perfect storm. And the idea was to write this song, make it a hit, and encourage people to, abandon communism and embrace, freedom. So the idea here is that the CIA was using this band for propaganda. And whether that meant like the CIA operatives sat there and wrote the lyrics like Wind of Change, or if they were just like paying a songwriter, did they go to the band directly and say, hey, we have an idea, we want you to carry it out for us, we'll give you some money or some whatever it may be. Because there are some funky circumstances regarding the song. First of all, they never made any sort of like political commentary type of songs. Everything was just like rock songs, chicks and motorcycles and fucking and drugs and stuff like that. Also, the dude who wrote it, the frontman, Klaus, he wrote the melody and the lyrics. He did the whole thing. He was not the band's songwriter. The lead guitarist was. So his story was that they went to this music festival in Moscow, and he was so moved by the moment and the crowd that this came to him. And it just all seemed kind of fishy. And they dig in deeper, and it turns out the band's manager, this was my favorite part of the story, and I feel like this could have its own, Don McGee could have his own, right? Don McGee? Doc McGee. Doc McGee could have his own podcast documentary. This dude was a big-time drug runner. Colombian coke, massive amounts of weed, ended up getting popped for the largest drug bust in American history. Everybody involved went to jail. I'm talking from Manuel Noriega down to like the dude who opened up the gate so the trucks could drive through. Everybody did hard time except for Doc McGee, who got off completely. And then also, as soon as he got off, happens to put together this music festival and go to Moscow with the Scorpions. It's just all too coincidental, all lining up. And it kind of like really opened my eyes to the idea of like the CIA, the government, whatever, worldwide, not just America, but everybody doing like that sneaky shit. Cause it probably is way more effective than like, paid commercials and just like true, regular stereotypical propaganda that's like leaflets and posters and speeches and shit that makes people go like, nah, not really, dude. Like, we're not even going to vote. Fuck off. So, not like the leaflets and the speeches and shit, but if, my favorite song is like subliminally putting thoughts in my head, or, people who wear these clothes that I relate to do certain things and I don't realize that it's actually influencing me. That idea makes sense to me. So it probably makes sense to the really smart people, the operatives and the law enforcement and the heads of state, that they're probably doing that shit. And what I liked about it is every conspiracy theory you hear, it's always bad, you know? It's always who assassinated this person, or like there's a ring of secret pedophiles. It's always dark. But like you said, this was kind of cool and light because it was like, oh, this is a conspiracy theory for good. This was like, this is one where the idea was a positive. Well, I guess depending on how you view it. But
I mean, the victors write the history, so sure. We're gonna say it was good.
Yeah, that's funny to think that like the USSR is sitting there like, damn it, they've got the Scorpions writing that song, and now like the evil's gonna win. But yeah, I mean, I guess you're right. But the idea of like a non-violent, you know, creative way to influence. I guess at the end of the day, this is all brainwashing, and you can make the argument that's bad. But I think the idea of and they use this in the show, and I think there's a reason why it was such a hit. But the movie Argo was the same idea. The CIA got involved not in music but in movies, and they made a full-scale operation that looked like they were making a real-ass movie because it had to be like believable. And Tony Mendez exfiltrated all those hostages. And they say in the show, another part that I thought was one of the best interviews was when they interviewed Tony Mendez's wife. Tony Mendez is who Ben Affleck played, and his wife was also a spy. And she was saying how like the reason why Argo is declassified and became a movie is because the CIA was like, we need a win. We need people to know that we're doing like not all of our operations are out here like sneaky killing people or like kidnapping people. Like, look how cool this shit was. So let that one out there. That's one. Like, how many others? How about the Howard Hughes thing? Did you? Yeah. Howard Hughes, they said this was another thing that could have had a full spin-off, if you ask me. At some point, I don't even know when this was. Like, when was Howard Hughes around? Like the 50s or some shit? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not really sure.
Either way, the Russians lost a nuclear submarine. It sunk. And we knew it, and we found where it was before Russia could. And the only way to, you know, if we sent our like naval ships out there, they would have known what's up. So we, as a country, we contacted Howard Hughes, the like bajillionaire lunatic aviator man, you know, aviator from DiCaprio. And
74.
74. So he made what they call it the Gomar, which was like a gigantic billionaire submarine fucking vessel that he said, I'm just a billionaire. I'm going around the ocean. I'm looking for like minerals and fucking treasure. I don't know. But he had been contacted by the government and they were like, take that and go get this submarine. The Russians will never know it's you. So he goes down to the bottom and it was rigged with this claw machine that was going to grab the submarine and bring it up. And it ended up breaking and like not working. But the idea that like, you know, the government was like, let's holler at basically Elon Musk. You know, what if like that's what's going on? Where they were like, you know, we got to get back out in space, but we don't want it to be a government endeavor. We want it to look like it's a private citizen. So let's talk to this billionaire and cut a deal with him. And that's where SpaceX comes from. I don't know, but all that shit's on the table to me because, I mean, I am a conspiracy theorist, but I also just sometimes believe it's a lot more reasonable to think that the billionaires and the powerful people and the people who are like, you know, every day it's like everything's on the line, life, death, money, power, all that shit. I think they're looking at every option, whether it's like, let's talk to this band, let's talk to this billionaire, let's talk to this actor, whatever. I believe it all. It's very plausible.
Well, so, I mean, I was the guy who was like rolling my eyes at everybody thinking that Bill Gates invented coronavirus. But like you start to hear that like people contacted Howard Hughes to do certain things. I still think that it's like when people are looking for a reason to blame bad stuff, like people just don't want to believe that bad things just sometimes happen. They want to think that there's a bad guy who can be caught. And that's where I'm like, that's the reason you're looking so hard for this conspiracy to be true. But in other more subtle things like this, where it's not just like, I guess if you were like the USSR, you could be like, God damn it, they conspired and they used a band to defeat us. So maybe if China wins the battle of the viruses 100 years from now, they'll be like, and then we used their computer guy. Can you believe it? We used Bill Gates and he invented and he spread and blah, blah, blah. You never know how it's going to all look in hindsight. But when I heard the Howard Hughes thing, I was like, well, this is an example that I did not know happened. And when you start to hear that like people use these upper crust kind of elitists to do stuff like that, it's like, well, that certainly makes it a little bit more plausible.